So we're going to start with Christophe Sauthier. He's the CEO of Objective Libre, IT provider in the south of France, and he's also the president of Ubuntu-France, so a good representative of the Ubuntu community. And he's coming to give his point of view on how Zentyal community can improve learning from Ubuntu example. So, Christophe.
Thanks, Ignacio. Like Ignacio said, I'm not Spanish, I'm not English, so I speak in English, but please forgive my English. If you want, we can speak in French after that, but not during the talk, I think. Before I start, two things. Usually in French, I'm very talkative, so my talk should be quite short. But since I talk a lot and a lot and a lot, maybe it will be just the time you need. What I'm going to talk right now is not really some criticize to the Zentyal community, but it's more, I would say, good or key sectors, key aspects that I think are really important in the Ubuntu community, and I think that may be interesting to develop inside the Zentyal one. So, like Ignacio said, my name is Christophe Sauthier. I am the leader of Ubuntu-France for about 4 years now. I'm also an Ubuntu developer, an official Ubuntu developer, which means that I am one of the about 100 people in the world who have right access to the Ubuntu repository. I'm also elected to the LOCO stands for local community, to the local community council. I will explain that a bit later. And I am the founder of Objective Libre, which is a service and training company in France, only focused on Linux. And we are more and more interested in Zentyal for our customer. We are, I would say, in the range of small and medium businesses. So, from my point of view, one of the key success of Ubuntu is the importance of the governance. Like you see, when I wrote these slides, I thought that this talk would be on the 10th of November. So that's why I said that a great community needs a great leader. This is by me today. Well, it was yesterday because I thought it was the 10th I was going to give this talk. Of course, when we talk about the Ubuntu community, we think about Mark is someone that maybe some of you have had the chance to meet. He's someone who is very talkative. He speaks a lot. He's very nice with people. We have the chance to meet him many times. I had the chance to meet him many times. He always had nice words with everyone. And by instance, when I just got my when I've been granted access to the Ubuntu repository as a developer, I mean something like 10 minutes after that, after the election, I received an email by him saying basically, okay, well done, Christophe, now it's your turn to contribute by yourself without needing any review. And it wasn't an automatic one. It was clearly his email because there were some, I would say, some jokes that just the both of us can understand. So, on the Ubuntu world, we have, of course, Mark, but we also have two areas where we have governance. Community, the governance aspect will be the community council, and technical, which is the technical board that handle that aspect of the governance. The action is mainly done in case of conflicts. So I'm really looking to see Ignacio talk lately about the Zentyal governance on that. But I really think that having two, I would say, two teams or two councils really separated in two different areas like community and technical are something which is really important in the Ubuntu one. How to choose a government? Democracy through meritocracy. You can become an Ubuntu member. Well, it's not like on, I would say, if you want to be a Debian developer, on the Ubuntu membership can be, I would say, granted when you do a sustained contribution to the project. What do I mean when I mean What do I mean by contribution? It can be translation, it can be documentation, of course it can be code, it can be just to talk and to install Ubuntu to many people. As far as you prove and you show a real contribution to the Ubuntu project, you can get the Ubuntu membership. At the beginning, there was just one council. It was a community council that used to give the Ubuntu membership. But now, the latest number I've seen were something like 700 members worldwide. So, as you can imagine, the community council cannot give the Ubuntu membership to anyone. Because I remember when I got my membership, it was something like 5 years ago. There were one meeting every month, and each meeting used to last between 4 and 5 hours. So quite time-consuming, and I mean, it's not very, very exciting for the people who are in the council to just listen to people to say, oh, I've done that, that, and that. So right now we have regional boards, and by instance, yesterday we had just received the result from the last board. Each Ubuntu member, which we call Ubuntero, can vote by himself for the election of community council and technical boards. So that means that once you have been granted Ubuntu member, you can participate in the life of the project. But what does it mean to be an Ubuntu member? Of course, it's not always nice to say, oh, I'm an Ubuntu member, but you also have you also need to have a clear definition of the status. In the Ubuntu world, being a member means that you have accepted the code of conduct. I will come back on that aspect later, but the code of conduct is like the ZCA, which is the Zentyal Contributor Agreement, which defines basically what you can and what you cannot do as inside the project. You will be getting an email that ends with ubuntu.com. You have your blog post aggregated on planet.ubuntu.com. You will have the right to speak, as I was said, you will have the right to speak for the project, for the Ubuntu project, and you also have the right to print your own business cards. People are really appreciating that, to be able to give business cards that display the Ubuntu logo. When I'm speaking on the two governance aspects that we have, which mean community council and technical boards, there are teams. Well, they are elected teams, but there are teams. Because at the very basic of every Ubuntu aspect, there are teams. We use team for everything. Maybe it's, I would say, an inheritance from the meaning of the word Ubuntu that can be translated in English as I am what I am because of who we all are, which means that I cannot do something by myself and it's just a result of what we do it by yourself. But the main aspect on that is a team can easily address a lack of time from anyone. We are all in the project, individuals, benevolent. Well, some people are paid to do that, but most of the Ubuntu members are just benevolent. I think I told you there are something like 700 Ubuntu members in the world. Something like just about 100 are paid by Canonical to work on Ubuntu. So there are 600 people in the world who are doing that by themselves as a benevolent. So we all have some time where we have a lack of time. We have, I don't know, a house to build, we have a baby, we have whatever we want. So being part of the team and addressing issues as a team can help to fix that. I was talking about lack of time, but we can also have lack of interest, because sometimes we want to move to something else. And if you are part of the team, it can help things. We had a worst case last week. Last week I was in Orlando for the Ubuntu Developer Summit, and during the summit we just heard that one of the Ubuntu members from the Brazilian team just passed away. And it was a shock for many of us because we know him, but since it was he was part in teams, there was no problem at all, besides the fact that he won't be here anymore. I mean, but his action, his password, and everything will continue, and because he was part of teams. So teams are everywhere. In governance bodies, as I said, in granted developers, we have two kinds. Basically, we have two kinds of teams in granted developers. So when you are granted, when you have access, you become of a team. In translations, in moderators, in bug squad, in whatever you want, there are teams everywhere in Ubuntu. I think one of the key aspects of the Ubuntu community also is the friendly atmosphere. This is something that we are very proud, and this is something that we want to enforce over the time. At the beginning, we used to say, every time you fix a bug, you get a hug. Well, okay. So we said a hug for a bug. Well, this is something that can make you smile, but that was really the case. And every time that I remember the first time I just fixed a bug, I was on IRC, and many people start to say on IRC, oh, Christophe, we hug you, we hug you, we hug you. Okay, I mean, everyone likes to be hugged. So we also have this friendly atmosphere because we have some strong moderation teams. I mean, in real life, in IRC, in forums, in mailing lists, we are very careful about how people speak to each other, the way they talk to each other. And by instance, I will give you two examples. In Ubuntu-France, just for the IRC channel, we have about 16 people moderating it. So we are able to moderate it 24 hours a day, even if you're in France. Well, we had the case, when was it? Last month. We have been asked by the South African team. When I mean we have been asked, I mean the local council. We have been asked by the South African team how they can address a problem that they have with someone. They have someone in their team who have been done some work, but for a few months, he has been real problematic with many people, especially with women. And many people right now stop to attend events because there was these people here, and many women don't want to address him anymore because he was just annoying her. So we had talked together, and we went to a conclusion that he must be excluded from the community for some time, to let him understand that there are some things that can be done or can be undone. There cannot be done. And I really think that if we want to maintain and to sustain this friendly atmosphere, we need to have this kind of moderation sometime. And in that case, I think the code of conduct of the ZCA are really, really important. There are great ways to ensure that people who want to take part of the project, to want to take part in this fabulous adventure, which is open source, developing open source and working and living around open source, I think that can be done and things that cannot be done. And if not the case, like I said, governance bodies should step in. Having a loco is not a loco. Well, this is a Spanish joke. I think the only one I can do. I think this is one of the reasons why Ubuntu is so widely spread. Around the world, we have about 180 teams, which means they are approved or non-approved, but there are 180 local teams. I really think that getting closer to users is something which is needed for every open source project. This is something that you can see on every big open source project. I just had this confirmation, by instance, by OpenStack, if you know this project, which is a cloud computing open source project. They have just established their first local community in London because most of their employers are working in London. But they're doing that, so every project needs to do that. Creating a local community clearly simplifies the exchange around each team member. Because if you are dealing with people from your own area, well, usually you speak the same language. So it's easier to discuss, and you don't have to listen to my poor English. Well, it takes the consideration and the advantage of centralization for resources. I really think that one of the key success we had in Ubuntu-France, which is the biggest local in the world for the world of Ubuntu, is that we are all French-speaking people. And as many of you must know, French people don't like to speak something else than French. So this is really one of the best things that we had. So we have just one forum, which gathers something about 4 million of posts, which has about 200,000 users on the forums, which is quite huge. There's also a risk when you are too concentrated of a lack of openness to the rest of the world. Well, this is something that needs to be addressed. It's also easier to follow every activity that has in an area. This is something that really bothers me, by the way, on the Zentyal forum, is that I cannot follow just the French-speaking topics. You can follow by RSS every topic in the forum, but not just the French one, by instance. So maybe this is something that can be interesting to add. I'm just saying that like this. I really think something which is important is the importance of helping new contributors. Getting started in a project is something that is very complicated. I mean, you need to have, of course, the skills, but also the time and the will. So that's three aspects that's quite complicated to find at the same time. So if you have someone who wants and who can do it, well, you really need to help him. So in each project, we need to find and to help good, I would say, good wannabe contributors. For instance, in the Ubuntu world, we had, and I've been leading that for many years, a mentoring program. When I mean mentoring, I mean you have a wannabe contributor, and you also have, I would say, an experienced developer, and they talk each other. They have some steps they can do, and they can discuss with a private relation. I mean, with a direct relationship. It's really great, but it's really, really time-consuming. So the program is failing for a few months now. So last week we just decided to go through an advisory board, which helped people to decide what to do, where to do next. Not really on a one-on-one relationship, but well, that will still be a relationship. I was talking that I was leading that aspect of the Ubuntu world for developing guys, but there were also the same thing in translators, in Bug Squad. On every aspect of the Ubuntu world, we have mentoring and advisory now. Bite-sized bugs. Well, I mean, when you are an experienced developer, maybe you are not really happy to fix just a typo in a web page. If you see just a typo, it's not really something that's very interesting to do that. But it might be a nice way for someone to start contributing in the project with this. This is how I started in Ubuntu. I've started in two stuff: translating, yeah, who knows, and also fixing just one typo in a web page, in a man page of a package. It was, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that. One thing that is really important is online or in real life, in person, schools. I mean, maybe some of you have heard about Juju. Juju is a tool for Ubuntu, which is developed by Canonical, which helps you to deploy stuff, how I said, to deploy services. And so last week, since it's something which is quite new, we had something like 3 hours of trainings with the developers from Juju. I mean, this is really something which is important to help new people. When you want to create a community, or when you want to have someone who step inside your community, make the possibility of exchange with the developers, and everything will go by itself. And finally, every contribution is important. This is related to the bite-sized bugs. And I will finish by saying that real-life events are really important. Even if, as a computer addict almost, we used to spend a lot of time on RC or behind our screens. being able to see people, to talk with people, to exchange and to party a bit is important. I mean, this is really, in real life event, that I think the most important stuff are achieved. I really think that some companies have really understand that. For instance, Google. I think this is one of the reasons why they are paying for the food for the employee at lunch. And that in their campus, you can have whatever you want. Because people, of course, will stay longer on their campus and work at their work, but also they will have a kind of extra work activities together. I mean, when I went to Google campus, I've been so amazed to see that they were having not a kindergarten, but a dog garden. They were having some people who were just arriving with their dog, people who work at Google, and they were just opening their door of the car, and there was someone from Google who just arrived and take the dog for the day inside the campus Google. So, I mean, this is something that is, I mean, quite symptomatic of that. And if you can have real-life event outside of your work, I really think that is something which is important. So, of course, you can do that on the company level, on every day, and on a personal project, you have to do that on regular basis. So this kind of event like we are here today are really important, but it needs to be done on regular basis. This is why everyone in the Ubuntu community loves to go to Ubuntu Developer Summit, because it's something that happens every 6 months in usually very nice areas. Last week we were in Orlando, in Florida. So that's why we have such great moments there. And because we also have, like we'll have tonight, social events every night. I mean, this is something that is really, really important. I was discussing earlier, during the lunch with someone from Zentyal, who explained me that at the last UDS, he attended with many people from Zentyal the last Ubuntu Developer Summit, and that during almost, I would say, a day off, they have been coding one module at that day. So, I mean, this is really, that really explain what I was saying here, which is that doing and doing, I would say, extra events can help you in your work and in the work of the project. And I think that's it. So if you have questions, ideas, or whatever. No. Yes. So the question is, what are the issues that are solved by the technical boards while you have teams of developers already? Sometimes you have, I would say, disagreement inside teams that cannot be fixed, okay, that cannot be solved. By instance, I'm quite sure that in the following days we will have this kind of disagreement on switching back for Ubuntu to use the Rhythmbox as the default the default audio player instead of Banshee. This might be something that might be solved by the technical board. Because if among the developers you cannot reach an agreement, I would say, that is the kind of thing that can be addressed by the technical board. Also, legal aspects. Usually developers by themselves are not very good with legal aspects. And from time to time, the technical board has to take, how I said, has to step in to say, okay, in that case, we will do that, we will do things that way because of that legal thing. Yeah. This is different. So what you said is that Mark Stallworth, which likes to call himself self-benevolent for life, self-benevolent, self-autoproclaimed, well, I don't know to say that in English. Well, he's a dictator, a nice, benevolent dictator for life. And that he takes some decisions sometimes, and it's true. But usually, I would say that he takes decision not on a technical side, but really on, I would say, on project decisions. But when we talk about technical aspects, it's really the tech board that leads that. But in the time, Mark was standing in both tech board and community council. Right now, he has stepped down from the technical board. He's just in the community council. Sorry for the noise. Okay. Thank you.